Well, moving on with our story tonight into the Equatorial Guinea. When we thought La République du Cameroon's president is the world's longest president in corruption, we see an older brother in that line in Equatoguinean President Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo. Let's take a quick look at this president from Wikipedia's perspective. It says Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo is an Equatoguinean politician and former military officer who has served as the second president of Equatorial Guinea since August 1979, and he is the longest serving president of any country ever and the second longest consecutively serving current non-royal national leader in the entire world. Born 5th June 1942, age 80 years, Akokan, Equatorial Guinea, spouse Constancia Mangwe, that born 1968, and children Teodoro Nguema Obiang Mangwe. Presidential term 3rd August 1979 to date, and siblings Amengo Ondo Nguema, office chairperson of the African Union Party, Democratic Party of Equatorial Guinea.
In 1968, Spanish Guinea gained independence and became the Republic of Equatorial Guinea with Francisco Marquez Nguema as president. Rights groups have labeled the country's two presidents, Francisco Marquez Nguema and President Teodoro Obiang Nguema, as some of the worst rights abusers in Africa. The Spanish, French, and Portuguese-speaking country discovered vast oil reserves in 1996. But much of the 1.4 million population has not benefited from this, with poverty still rampant.
Well, on Sunday, Equatorial Guinea held its elections, and in which the world's longest standing president, which is the person of Teodoro Obiang Nguema, he sought to extend his 43rd year authoritarian rule marked by alleged right abuses and corruption. He was present. Now, the West African oil-producing nation, Equatorial Guinea, of around 1.5 million, has had only two presidents since independence from Spain in 1968. Obiang ousted his uncle Francisco Marquez Nguema in a coup in 1979. The 80-year-old Obiang, always elected with over 90% of votes in polls that international observers have questioned. He is vying for a sixth term against two other candidates, Andres Esono Ondo and Buenaventura Monsu Asumu.
Now, although the tiny Gulf of Guinea nation had seen major investments in infrastructure, critics say under Obiang, oil wealth has lined the pockets of his entourage, who flash luxury lifestyles while most of the population live in poverty. Oil and gas production accounts for around three-quarters of revenue in the OPEC member states, but output has dwindled in recent years to around 93,000 barrels per day from around 160,000 barrels per day in 2015 due to maturing fields. Obiang is also accused of Muslim dissent and freedom of expression. The government has denied the accusations. Protests are mostly forbidden. Media is heavily controlled, and it is not uncommon for political opponents to be arbitrarily arrested and tortured, says rights group. Intimidation has increased in the run-up to the polls. Activists say with authorities targeting civil society groups and critics of the regime.
Speaking of intimidation, in September, security forces raided the headquarters of a banned opposition party, the only one with a seat in parliament, and detained over 100 of its members. Before the election yesterday, human rights activist Tutu Alicante told Reuters this particular report. Can you imagine this? When you mention countries without laws, boundaries, or restrictions, at least the world knows to now.
Now, this country is making terrible headlines on the news sure ended. Repression ahead of the vote has offset efforts by Obiang to improve his image abroad. The latest thing in a move to abolish the death penalty earlier this year. He says people will cast the votes the government expects them to because you cannot freely speak up your mind in Equatorial Guinea. Another says he is washing his face in front of the international community, said Amnesty International senior campaigner for West Africa, Marta Colomé. Alleged corruption has also tainted Obiang's tenure despite several pledges to increase transparency.
Well, the president has placed his family members in political seats and has his son Teodoro Nguema Obiang Nguema for vice president, a father and son rulership. And observers see the son as a potential successor, even though records has it that he was convicted for embezzlement by a French court in 2020. Assets that foreign power says he bought was ill-gotten. He was bought with ill-gotten gains include a crystal-covered glove won by Michael Jackson and an armored Rolls-Royce limousine and a yacht. Both father and son have consistently denied wrongdoings.
Now, here is the catch. If re-elected, Obiang will face new challenges. The economy was hit by COVID-19, and although the war in Ukraine has boosted demand for non-Russian oil, it has also brought a sharp rise in food prices. The opposition does not stand a chance. Alin Sante said he's going to do whatever it takes not to leave power. The president has a strong grip on the oil-rich nation, with family members in key government roles, by the way. The elections are merely cosmetic, Professor Anne Lucia Sarr told the BBC.
Well, nothing will change is what Professor Sarr, who specializes in politics and authoritarian African regimes at the University Institute of Lisbon, said, adding that she was sure Obiang will be elected with more than 95% of the vote. This sentiment is also echoed by activist Tutu Alicante, who told Reuters news agency that you cannot freely speak up your mind in Equatorial Guinea, and the opposition does not stand a chance. He continued to say that he is going to do whatever it takes not to leave power for the president.
Now, from these, you have seen that political opposition is barely tolerated and severely hampered by the lack of a free press, as all broadcast media is either owned outrightly by the government or controlled by its allies. President Obiang, who has previously denied rights abuses and election rigging, is seeking to clean up his international reputation. In September, the government abolished the death penalty in a move which was praised by the UN. But poverty has not stopped being their political weapon against the masses. President Obiang has managed to maintain his grip on the power, probably due to controlling the rules of the political game. Professor Sass said, adding that he uses the poverty of the nation as a political weapon. Meanwhile, electoral laws were conceived to make sure Obiang will never lose power, she commented. Now, the country has a history of what critics call fraudulent election results. Officials said President Obiang won more than 97% of the votes in presidential elections in December 2002. Opposition candidates withdrew from the poll, citing fraud and irregularities. Similar results were also reported in the 2009 and 2016 elections.
There have also been accusations of corruptions leveled against the Obiang regime after his son Teodoro Obiang was fined in the French court for using public money to fund a luxurious life in the European nation. Mr. Obiang's French assets have been seized after that, and Vice President Obiang, his son actually, has denied any wrongdoing. President Obiang himself has also previously denied allegations of corruption. One that is already this glaring and they still deny. What do we expect more? Well, you see the patterns of La République du Cameroon painted out in its neighboring country, or do we say the patterns of Equatorial Guinea played out on La République du Cameroon? Well, the case of the Equatorial Guinea is just another playout of what La République du Cameroon has been doing for decades. It's as though these two presidents are in a competition of being the world's oldest terrible presidential leaders at the expense of the well-being of their citizens. It is really sad and worse to think the hands of their citizens are tied. Well, that is if they really are tied.